But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. Although they can't repay you, you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. Luke chapter 14, verses 13 through 14.
I can't wait to debate the guy. That is, if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. See what I did there? Governor Tim Walz.
Evil is amongst us. Stay back, boy. This calls for divine intervention. I kick ass for the Lord.
Welcome to Heresy and Hearsay, a podcast to reclaim faith in the context of political discussion. I'm Rev Barney, and you can follow me on most social medias at SethRothII. Heresy and Hearsay has a Patreon site where you can find us at patreon.com/Heresy and Hearsay, where you can find past shows as a way to help us. Just $2 a month goes a long way to help us make this humble show. As my co-host, the voice of reason of this show, September.
Some days anyway. Hi, I'm September, also known as Nineof12, and you can follow me at Nineof12.com. That's Nineof12.com. You can find all my podcasts there and other stuff I have done and do. You can follow this show on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and any podcast catcher. Just look for Heresy and Hearsay. Please like, share, follow, subscribe, and give us a review. That really helps other people find us. And you can find our first volume of podcasts on YouTube and Patreon. So first, let's cover some news before we get into the topic today.
Yes. Just a few things here. One I noticed is and this will dovetail into the second part of the news, but Twitter, because I refuse to call it X because that is a stupid name, is suing because people don't want to sell ads on Twitter, or as I like to say, capitalism. They like capitalism except when capitalism doesn't work in their favor because it's full of hate. Disney's not going to, advertise on a place where, blue checkmark people are spouting, hate. They're just not going to do it. So, a coalition, basically what happened is a coalition of advertisers and marketers got together and basically worked together to help people not advertised on Twitter because the brand was looking, because the brand is horrible now, and Twitter feels, or Elon feels, that it's antitrust. So he's suing, because he's not giving the advertising, because he sunk $44 billion into this and has lost his shirt, and not only the shirt from Twitter, but he's also lost money from Tesla. So, he's basically, losing his fortune because he got angry at people tweeting pictures of him when he was younger and needing hair plugs. So, pettiness got him, where he's losing money. And now, and I've discovered through, Donald Trump being rich and everything that, all rich people are petty, it seems.
What's even better, though? So, there's a lawsuit against Elon and J.K. Rowling.
For their hate speech?
Yes. The Algerian boxer Remain Khalif has filed a cyberbullying lawsuit against them.
Right, I heard about that. That was going to be part of my stick today. So yes,
stick. That's a carrot.
Yeah.
Good for her. Go for it.
Well, that part is I was going to yell at people for being just complete assholes. Because
yeah.
We'll get more into that whole situation as far as the Olympics are concerned and her. But oh my God, it was just like. And the thing is that could endanger her life back in her home country.
Yep.
Because of, they are very very Muslim country and everything, and they think that she is transgender, then at that point, that could cause her a lot of grief.
Yeah, people are stupid.
Yeah. So,
those people are stupid.
Then, right. Last week, Trump decided he was going to hold a press conference, which was one of the worst things I ever personally witnessed. They said there was though he quote unquote answered the questions of the press, he didn't actually answer any of their questions. He just spouted off his lies,
just his random shit.
Yeah, I watched it. It was the worst until Monday, when we got him and Elon deciding to stroke each other's egos on Twitter, and that thing was an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah,
and
just from the get-go, they couldn't handle the tech.
And this is supposed to be a guy who is super intelligent and a genius and everything, and can't figure. Look, we just. Behind the curtain, we were just struggling with a little bit of our tech, but it only took us 10 minutes to figure it out. Jeez, 45 minutes. And then, Trump comes on and starts, blabbing for 2 hours, sounding like Sid from Ice Age, with a lisp that would make Sylvester the cat go, "You need to stop." I'm just, it was horrible.
And Elon claimed a DDoS attack, but no.
Twitter said it didn't happen.
Yeah, lots of people have been looking into this, and that did not apparently happen. And that's just him trying to hype up, like some people hear about this happening, look, we're being protested. And if you watch the comments during that live feed, it was so filled with bots just repeating the same statements over and over to get him in there, because it was moving really fast. It did have a lot of viewers. But boy, it was a lot of bots saying the same thing, like, oh, Harris couldn't even handle this many people. And just saying it over and over and over, and talking points. And it was sad. The press conference, my one son said to me, "Man, he's sundowning." And then the interview, or whatever you call that mess on X, my other son, without knowing what the first one said to me, said, "Ooh, he's sundowning." Like, the slur. Is Colt 45, now that they're done making fun of Biden's, they can't just make fun of his lifelong stutter, becoming more evident? Are they going to notice how their candidate slurs? Like, they have this line going, like, Kamala must be a day drinker and she acts like she's drunk all the time. Your candidate slurs.
Mm-hmm. Now, that could be that his, I don't know how true this is. I have heard this multiple times, though, from different sources, that Trump, instead of brushing and flossing his teeth or going to the dentist, he just gets veneers put onto his teeth every year or 18 months. And they could be slipping off and he needs a new set, because he's been talking too much or whatever.
It could be any number of things, but it's not the first time, and it does seem to be getting suddenly worse. The first time it really became evident, actually, it was a couple years ago when he got COVID. Right. And there was talk, and he was hospitalized, and he had some kind of incident, and they wouldn't say what it was, but there was chatter that he had a stroke.
Right.
And like, that's when I remember it starting. But holy crap, on X, it was so evident.
2 hours. It was really bad. And I've only.
It wasn't after he talked a while either, though. It was right there at the beginning.
No. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was from the very start, and I don't know if it was that 45 minutes that they had to wait and everything else. If at that point he just whatever medication he may be on, some people say he's on Adderall or whatever, that may have been wearing down or whatever. It could have been, but how could none of his staff had heard it and been like paused it for a second and been like, Mr. Trump, you need to spit or whatever, at this point. Here, have a glass of water, something, but yeah, it was, and I only heard bits of it because when I heard the first bit of it, it's like, oh, I cannot sit through this. This is going to be bad. And it was. A lot of people said it was bad, said it was worse than, remember when DeSantis launched his campaign on on Twitter with the exact same, voice, no video kind of situation. So, and imagine even Trump said how disastrous that was and how that all ended up. So think about it, and they're saying it was worse than DeSantis's launch of his presidential campaign.
Yeah, there was a lot about it that was really awful and terrifying. I mean, Elon's in this because that's a candidate that maybe he can get some of his money back and get richer, because he lost a bunch of money that I don't think people realize. And there was so much racist crap in it. Holy God. Like, Trump doesn't apparently know the difference between claiming asylum and being released from asylum to come into our country.
Right.
Like, holy crap, the stuff he said. And of course, well, once again, just the lies make me crazy. We had a whole show on false witness, and not an iota of that has changed in the last few years on that side of the aisle, with just lies. Like, the crime rate going up here is a lie. The number of people that cross the border is a lie. That it went up is a lie. Like, just so many lies.
Oh,
it's really hard to listen to.
Yeah, and the thing is, and this goes into my next news story, was Lawrence O'Donnell, who I honestly, because he was a champion of Biden until Biden dropped out and everything else, but he's on board with Harris and everything else. But he was visibly, if you watch this video, and I did, he was visibly and showed it, visibly angry at the press, at that presser that Trump had. I mean, he threw down his script, just slamming things. He went Irish. He got angry because of the fact of 2 points. One is, whenever Biden is having a press conference, how many people are yelling at him and how many people are trying to, get follow-up questions after he answers the first question or whatever, versus there was no yelling. Everybody was polite and kind and quiet and no follow-up questions.
Oh, they vet and only allow certain reporters in. We've known that for a really, really long time.
But, and then, no, that's fine. But then he went ahead and he, talked about the fact that all the news, it was held live on MSNBC, on CNN, on Fox, and all of that stuff, without at least. And he said, and this has been talked about, where on the other, the screens are big enough. He says this: the screens are big enough where on one side you could have the press conference, on the other side you could have live fact checking. Like, nope, that's a lie. Nope, that's a lie. Guys, not saying it. I mean, you don't have to say it like that if you want to be, fair, which you don't need to be. Call it what it is. It's a lie. But you can put up the actual facts. That presser, there was so many lies about the border, because this is all they have. All they have is this xenophobia. They don't have anything else that they can go on. Their Project 25, which we will eventually cover, and Agenda 47, which we did cover, has no real economics except to help the rich and punish the poor. The only thing that they've talked about is no tips, no taxing on tips, which is fine, I guess. But Kamala came out with the same thing, but said there needs to be ways. We need to do it in a logical way so that people don't abuse this, so that lawyers and venture capitalists and all the and hedge fund managers don't, that needs to be means tested and everything. But yes, I do think that there should be taxes on tips. But she also said it in a very logical way, and Trump's upset about it because I think Trump was trying to figure out a way to do this to where it could be done to where hedge fund people could say, and this is my gratuity that I don't have to pay taxes on for running this hedge fund kind of situation. And she was calling all that out, but there's no economic plan. There's nothing they can run on. So all they can run on is the xenophobia and that Hannibal Lecter was a really good guy.
Like, that's insanity. I don't.
It's like the electric boat thing and the shark thing, and I'm going and the boat. I love how the boat guy, Trump tells on himself. He's like, in that story, he's like, the boat guy's like, no one's ever asked me a question like that. I'm sure the boat guy, you've seen those people when someone's asking an insane question, other people are just kind of slowly trying to back away, like they're scared that the bear or whatever is going to attack them if they notice any fear. That's that kind of question is like,
I mean, how
back away from it.
I don't understand how the supporters can't. Some have come around. Actually, I have seen a handful of the Trump support flags coming down even here.
Right, I have too, because they've noticed that he's crazy. Now they're either not going to vote or they'll vote. Or they'll vote everything but president.
I'm worried RFK is pulling a Nader. So on purpose, by the way.
Yeah, I think it's on purpose, but I don't think it's going to work.
I don't know. I gotta tell you, being in public areas around people who are righties, there's a lot of more RFK talk. Just like there's been a surge in the Harris support and wonderful Walz things, I'm hearing more about RFK from those folks. The folks that only listen to the first line and then not the exact same kind of folks that voted for Nader, that think they're independent and they listen till it sounds really good what he's saying and they don't listen to the next 3 sentences that are absolute madness.
Right.
I remember it happening exactly that way back then. And I know RFK, I've seen footage of him talking about what Nader, the danger Nader was posing to that election. Right. And now he has been in contact with Trump, talking to him. He's trying to spoil this on purpose.
I think he's going to spoil it for Trump, if anybody. If he does. Because he's anti-vax and all this stuff, and I think that hits that independent, that libertarian thing.
All the racist Democrats will just see Kennedy.
Yeah.
There's a good chunk that are anti-vax, and it's an anti-LGBT, and things that RFK has spouted will appeal to them. Anyway. It's a whole nother discussion. We'll see how that goes.
That is. We'll see how that goes.
I hope he fucks off.
Well, he got kicked off of the New York ballot, and he may get kicked off of a couple other ballots, and that may be a different speaker. I know New York's not a deal.
I just saw a headline the other day about him getting on a whole ton of ballots. And I'm not worried about states like New York.
No, I'm not. But
you get them off the swing state ballots, please.
Yes. So, but now that we've completed the news, and we're about to hit our main topic, which we'll be talking about the VP pick for that Harris did. Brother Bowie, will you lead us in a word of prayer?
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Before we get into this, because this just hit me while he was praying, have you seen the David Bowie Saint candles that are out?
No, not recently, no.
I need, if I ever get enough money, I need to send you a couple, because I know you would appreciate having a couple of David Bowie Saint candles, because that.
That sounds great. Like, I have one Saint candle right now, and it's Anthony Bourdain.
Oh, that's a good one. That's
yeah,
good one. Yeah. But so today we're going to talk about. And first off, I want to, a mea culpa, an admission. I apologize for not having a show last week. First off, we had the storm come through, Debbie. And then because of the storm and everything, it messed up my head and it messed up my sleep schedule really bad. So I apologize for that, that we didn't have this last week. So we are a week behind, and I apologize. So I just want to apologize to our listeners, because I know we have some. We've picked up a couple of new Patreons that are free Patreons, which is perfectly fine. We appreciate, any type of activity on the website. I've noticed that we've picked up on websites, on people listening to us on YouTube. So I appreciate that, and I thank you very much. And I'm sorry that we're a week behind. With that said, let us talk about Tim Walz, and things have, picked up since I initially started this. But who is Tim Walz? Who is Governor Walz?
I'm going to spare you the Midwestern hate, as they say. It's Walz. And if you can't remember, there's like to the window, to the walls. There's a line dance because of a TikTok somebody did, just to get people to remember using that little blurb. And this guy's become like TikTok famous over it. I kind of love it.
Okay, so Tim Walz, I apologize. So, okay, it's Tim Walz, which is one of the few things I think Trump can actually say, because he loves to talk about his wall. So, Wall.
He's probably trying to say Waltz, but slurring.
How do you slur a Z? Anyways,
you say Walls.
All right. So So he was born in a small Nebraska town that he talked about, like, had over maybe 400 people in it, and half his graduating class was relatives of his, of 24 people total. Someone made a joke. I bet that made prom interesting. I'm like, that's not funny. But he grew up. He joined the National Guard and used the GI Bill to go to college, where he became a school teacher and also a football coach. People, and this aggravated me, and I'll get to the stolen valor BS in a second. But they're talking about, well, he wasn't the head coach. It doesn't matter if he was the head coach. Do you call the assistant coach, or do you call him coach when you're a high school kid? I know who I called when I was in, working with the football teams and everybody else. They were all coach.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I'm like, whatever. But during that time frame, in 1999, and this is a big deal because those of us who remember the 90s know that this wasn't exactly gay-friendly, even though we were moving that direction. The 90s weren't very gay-friendly, and it was the Midwest in Nebraska, and he was the first, and he was the advisor for the Gay Straight Alliance in his high school at the time, because he saw how some of his LGBTQ plus students were being treated, and they came to him and was like, would you be that connector and everything else? And he'd have like his football players come and help and all this kind of stuff, and it was a big deal for 1999. Would you not agree with that?
Oh yeah, I love that, especially being a football coach and getting his players to participate, so these conversations could happen, and that students were engaging in them when to solve a bullying problem among. I mean, some things never change with high school. Like the jocks are going to bully certain, the theater kids. And it was a perfect bridge to agree to become the faculty advisor at that point.
Mm-hmm. As I said, he served the National Guard for 24 years. He left the Guard right as we were going into Afghanistan and Iraq especially, and his group was going to be deployed over in Iraq, but he had been there for 24 years. And Jesse Ventura, who was also a former Minnesota governor. He's a libertarian. He ran on the Perot ticket way back in the day. Look it up, kids. But he was also one of the first Navy SEALs, and he served in Vietnam. And yes, he's also a professional wrestler and actor, but he is also he was also in the military first. And he was on CNN talking about how the Republicans are going after Walz for leaving his unit before they deployed. And Jesse was like, he was in the National Guard. He served after 20 years. You can retire at any time at that point. He did what he did. And more importantly, he left when we were sending National Guard, who their job is to guard the nation, off to foreign wars, which is what they weren't supposed to do. He had every right to do that. So get off his back. He served honorably for 24 years. So when you have, go ahead.
Yeah, they did some weird stuff trying to pull off the stolen valor thing. They grabbed onto, Tim Walz did say he misspoke, because in a speech he was talking about these weapons of war that I've carried, and he didn't technically carry weapons of war in a war zone. Right. At the time, he had been deployed. I thought I read it at some point. But yeah, he retired in May, and then his unit was deployed in like July. So acting like even he was just hurrying up and getting out, and especially after 24 years, is a stretch. It's such a stretch. They got nothing. Yeah,
they don't have anything. In 2004, it was when he first got really politically active. He volunteered for the Kerry campaign. He was inspired because because he took his kids. He was a social studies teacher, a history teacher, civics, that kind of stuff. He took his class to a Bush rally, and they weren't going to let in a couple of his students because they had Kerry stickers on their wallets or whatever the case. And back then, if you were not much like today with the Trump stuff, if you were anti-Bush or not in his league or whatever, or following along, they didn't let you into the rallies because they didn't want any protesters. They didn't want anything like that, and they weren't going to protest. There was a class of students that were going there and witness it, for civics and everything else, and it upset him. And so he's like, no, that's BS. You shouldn't do that. This is democracy, and people should be allowed to go and see these speeches. And if they want to protest, that's part of the democracy. That's part of the process, And so he decided to join the Kerry campaign, and then shortly thereafter, he ran in a extremely red district and won to be the congressman there. Nancy Pelosi, in fact, changed the rules because freshman congressmen weren't allowed to have more than 2 positions on committees, and he was on 3 of them because he had served in the National Guard. He was part of the Veterans Affairs, and he helped with all of that, helping craft the bill that became the Veterans Act. To help that as well. And he was also part of the agriculture because he was from Nebraska. And if you're from Nebraska, or he was at that point Minnesota, if you're from the Midwest, somehow you end up on agriculture or something like that. It's just a committee you're pigeonholed into. But he, and he made his bones, and someone said that he was extremely liberal, that he was the Bernie Sanders of Congress. You know what Congress has? A Bernie Sanders already, and I think he's pretty famous anyway. So I'm like, he was, and Bernie Sanders started as a representative before he became a senator. So I think they already had a Bernie Sanders in the House of Representatives before Tim Walz. And then he ran and became governor in 2018, and that is where we are as far as his political and his career as a basic life story as a human being. Do you have anything to add to that?
Not really. The only thing I want to mention is how much I love. There's a lot of things about his path in politics that are reminiscent of, like, he got in at the same time I got into politics, kind of during the Kerry campaign. And I had goals, and I was moving up, and I was taking a party path, and I was like, I'm going to run for this, I'm going to run for this. And like, I figured around now I'd be running for president, and I didn't stay on that path. But I relate so much to the path he's taken. I love that he's opened his mind and learned along the way, and then done stuff about something, like his stance on guns and his stuff with the NRA.
Right. Yes. Because initially he did have a fairly high rating with the NRA, but
he had an A rating, and then Parkland happened, and he denounced them, and he also took the $18,000 that they had donated to his campaign, and he gave it away to a charitable organization.
Mm-hmm. I remember. My father was a big NRA supporter. He had a lifetime membership. He had paid for the lifetime membership and everything. And they called him up one day, and he's like, "No, in fact, I want you to remove my name from your list. I no longer want to be a member of the NRA because you guys are not about hunters' rights or guns' rights. You guys are a lobbyist for the gun manufacturers, and you allow children to be slaughtered." And my father was not extremely conservative, but he was a conservative individual. So, these kind of things, you can see people grow from them. And my father did the same thing as Tim Walz did, and everything else. So it makes perfect sense for him to grow up and see that, or not grow up, but evolve and see what the NRA had become and everything else, because they were at one time an organization that was about, hunters' rights and making sure people had the, proper training and all that kind of stuff. And they've changed so radically that, conservative individuals are that are open-minded to facts and everything else, saw that this was evolving and walk away from it. And Parkland was a wake-up call for a lot of those individuals. So I'm glad to see that. Now, when he became governor, he did. There's a lot of things he did. I want to cover just a few of the basics that some people are upset about, because these are controversial decisions, quote unquote. I'm using bunny foo foo quotes, air quotes here. He said, now understand, he also has a very razor thin majority in the Senate and the Minnesota Senate. So to pass all this stuff is a big deal. He's giving free breakfast and lunch to kids, because having well-fed students, obviously is a sin to the GOP, because they are very mad about that. He strengthened the abortion laws in Minnesota. He's protected the trans individuals and gender affirming care for children, and he also banned outright conversion therapy. He established paid leave to ensure paid sick leave. He banned no compete agreements or contracts. increased protection for workers in the Amazon warehouses, including allowing them to be able to unionize, as well as construction sites, hospitals, nursing homes, things like that. He also set it up to where this has gotten him the nickname of Tampon Tim, because he set it up to where in schools, if a young lady needs any type of sanitary stuff, they can get it for free. That they shouldn't have to be charged for tampons or pads or whatever the case may be. So he set that up for free in schools as well, and the Republicans have lost their minds about that as well. And there's
again,
so
because
much
they
more.
got nothing.
Yeah, they got nothing. They don't have. Yeah, this. Someone called him like Santa Claus, but he shaved his beard. Kind of situation. And it's he is like almost he's too young for us to be a grandpa, but for a lot of, especially the young voters and everything, they look at him as their liberal, happy-go-lucky grandpa. He may be a little grouchy, which he's not, but he's a little older and everything, but he still has your same values. He's just grandpa. Everything else, you have the crazy uncle, and then you have the kind of liberal hippie grandpa that's out there kind of situation, and that's Tim Walz in a way. He is, and with all of this stuff here, he really backs up what the Biden administration wanted to do initially, anyways, with the Build Back Better and with the family acts and stuff like that. To get free lunches for the kids and everything, because that's a bit. I remember when we covered this in our first volume of stories of how absolutely BS it was that kids were going hungry at school and they weren't being able to graduate because they had money that they owed for lunches because they couldn't afford lunch, and how absolutely bonkers it was how many GOP reps and everything were on board with, well, just have them work for their food or whatever, or work at McDonald's and they'll get a free meal at McDonald's or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that's great and everything, but we're trying to educate kids. They should.
Yeah, and I wouldn't call him a liberal hippie by any means either, just because of some things he's passed. And I think that's a disservice to who he is just a decent guy.
Yes.
Just doing the right thing. I do have another really great story, because we've all seen the memes at this point, right? The dad jokes and this is a guy who'll come over and mow your lawn when you're on vacation and not fess up to it, blah, 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 blah. But there's literal videos he made about stuff maybe you should know that you don't, that younger generation doesn't know. These little videos of what a certain tool is and how an 8-track tape works and stuff. But here's a secondhand story. So my friend Andy Ball, he used to be Mayor Boone. I've known him from politics for, I don't know, over a decade. And he posted some little one of those memes about Tim Walz. And someone, a friend from Minnesota who worked in the Democratic Party there, wrote this great story. So I was like, oh my gosh, I spotted it in the wild. He is this guy. When he was running for governor the first time, he went to the Democratic Party convention. They had a convention to vote on who they were endorsing for governor. And by the way, if you're from there, I know it's the Democratic Farmer Labor Party. You don't, he's not just a Democrat either, which people really should talk more about. I think it'd be great for the election. But he went to the convention and he lost. They endorsed someone else. He did end up winning the primary and then going on to be governor. But the day after, or a couple days after the convention, this guy had been the parliamentarian at the Democratic convention for the endorsement. Tim Walz was walking down the street with his daughter, across the street. and he saw this guy and he ran across the street like, hey, I just wanted to thank you for like all your help running that convention. Like, you did such a great job. Even though he didn't get the endorsement, he like ran across the street to thank the parliamentarian. So he's really that guy.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I'm going to say this, and this may get me some, but we talk about the reason I started this podcast is because I was tired of my faith, my Christianity being used for hate and for all of this stuff. Tim Walz is the exemplar of what Christianity should be, especially in politics. It's taking care of those who can't take care of themselves, looking out for those who are less fortunate, who are, marginalized for whatever reason, helping kids, helping people try to just be better, and more importantly, letting them live their lives. Because ultimately, as a Christian, what they do in their private lives is none of our business. That's between them and God, and whatever they decide and whatever they feel is right. And God will make that ultimate decision if it's the right thing or not. And we've discussed all of that kind of stuff as far as the legalities and the questions of morals and everything about all kinds of things. So we've discussed that. So Tim Walz is an exemplar. I don't want to say, this will come off bad. He is the closest thing that we've come to a Jimmy Carter in quite some time. And if you know anything about Jimmy Carter is like, him and Dolly Parton should be patron saints of Christianity in America because of how they actually act as Christians. Not spouting it or anything, just doing good works. And that's what Tim Walz has been doing. Is that assessment a wrong assessment, do you think? Or is that too over the top?
No, I'm there for it.
Because, we discussed a couple of weeks ago about all these different calls that have been going on for Harris and everything. Tim Walz got on the White Guys for Harris call and was amazing at that call. And one of the things he said is like, there's this thing is like, mind your own business. That what he's trying to do is basically make people mind their own business. If there's an LGBTQ kid, plus kid in school, mind your business. They're just trying to live their life. It has no effect on yours. It's one of those situations where he is just trying to be a good person, and being a good person means that you do good things.
Yeah.
The GOP, we've discussed kind of what they already think about him and everything else. One of the other things is, and this is still going around, is how they basically picked Governor Walz because they were the Dems were being anti-Semitic because they didn't want Shapiro. Shapiro didn't. It had nothing to do with that. It had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, just stop. Like, her husband's Jewish. Like, and they they keep saying out loud that like Kamala hates Jews. So shut up. Like, they got nothing.
Yeah, and it's one of those. It's one of those situations where Shapiro had some positives, but he also had some negatives because he was very pro-Israel and everything else. And there was a letter that was circulated from like 50 different organizations, teaching organizations that said don't pick him. And this was in July 24th, right after she was selected. And everything else about how, because he was cracking down on campus protests and everything else. And it would have looked, and as far as the excitement that we have, especially with VP Harris, everything else, it might have come off looking a little bad, especially when a lot of the young voters are very, I still hear the rumblings about the, the Palestine-Israel conflict and everything else, and that is a big issue with a lot of the younger voters, or a good amount of those who are politically charged younger voters and the activists. And there's still some underlying rumbling, but for the most part, because it's Harris and because it's Walz, it's kind of been tamped down because there's so much other stuff that's good to look at, and that they may be a different viewpoint on that. So that is one of those situations where they have to be careful. And Walz is also a good pick because he follows along as far as the economic values that Harris has and everything else, as far as what he's passed in that state and what he looks for as far as protecting the family, everything else. And it also neutralizes that whole the Democrats hate family and hate kids, because they can't say, the GOP can't say that when Tim, there's a video, and I think I posted it in our notes, of him being hugged by kids after he signs the bill. Yeah, and it's just like, oh, that is the most adorable thing ever. I think my heart's going to explode with joy, kind of situation.
Oh,
he's just. Yeah.
So, did you know about the Prince Highway?
No.
Oh, babe. And all the purple goodness. Tim Walz named a highway after Prince and signed the bill in purple.
Oh. See, it's that kind of stuff, and it's like, how can you hate this? How can you be upset? It's like, this is the best thing ever. It's like,
and Fox News is busy making fun of him for like the flag changing for Minnesota while he was there, and they were, like he was changing it to look like some other country and blah 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 blah. He was. Well, he wasn't the one who pushed to get it changed. It just happened while he was there. But yes, he approved of it and he signed the bill because, it got passed and the other flag was racist. So,
right.
Shut up.
Yeah. It's like, for example, back in the day, most people don't know this, but the Georgia flag used to have the stars and bars in it before it got changed. I want to say in the 2000s. I mean, for years it had the stars and bars as part of its built into its flag. So, and that's fucking racist. Just so if we can eliminate the symbols and eliminate the structural racism that is built into our nation, all the better. And that's just a better thing for all of us. So yeah, I don't understand people. I really don't. But they're saying he's left of left of left. He's the leftist of leftiest of left that can be, where he is.
Yeah, they got excited. Left. They thought it was like they had all kinds of ammo on him and he was super left, but it's not working out that way. It's just not true. So.
No, and the polls are showing that. Harris is up 4 points in 3 battleground states, Pennsylvania, which people were worried because she didn't pick Shapiro that she wouldn't get Pennsylvania. She's up in Pennsylvania, she's up in Michigan, and she's up in Wisconsin. So, though I did hear that Milwaukee was moved into Minnesota. So, by Laura Ingraham. So, I guess Wisconsin is, so.
The ticket's looking good here too, by the way, so.
Oh yeah, it's
moving
doing well. Yeah, we're doing well. We're doing great as far as that's concerned, which is, and like I said, there are a few of the progressives who are not liking this pick, but at the end of the day, they are, what I have heard is minimal, and they are of the people that don't like anybody that isn't, a communist kind of situation. They're, they aren't interested in actual change and actual stuff. So they've been shunted off, and most people aren't even paying attention to them anymore. So, but yeah, like I said, I posted the video of when he signed the free lunch and breakfast law, and all the little kids just hugging him, and how adorable he looked being hugged by all those kids, and I'm just like, my heart, I can't take it. It's so cute. It's a cuteness overload.
Okay, and people will be able to find links to that in the show notes on
Yep.
Patreon.
Yep. And in the show notes on YouTube when that's posted as well. All right, so let's talk our carrot and stick.
What's up, Doc?
So I saw this yesterday and posted it up. It's a Twitter chart, so take it with a grain of salt. But but it's being reported in other places that since Harris became the nominee, or became the head of the ticket as it stands now, that the registration for the Democrats in North Carolina has skyrocketed. They were like barely registering anybody at the beginning of July, and now they're doing maybe 1,000 a week.
Yeah,
register. So that's a good sign. That's a good sign.
The only real good. I don't think it's okay. I'm gonna rain on your parade here a little. It going up is great. The only contrast I'd pay any attention to is the difference between it going down and then back up to normal. Because of the rest of the spike, it's GOTV time. That's what's happening right now. Like, campaign-wise, they're going door to door and stepping up voter registration. It's like 90 days before the election, we start GOTV. So this happens every time.
Okay.
I mean, it's exciting and it's cool, like, because they are registering Democrat, which means, if nothing else, it does show that we've got volunteers out there. And I do know that the number of volunteers did get a boost since Harris became the nominee. So we can get more registrations, and then getting them to commit and show up is another whole task.
Right.
But this isn't as spectacular as it might look. Like, it's not only motivated because it's not only indicative of the ticket change. It's indicative of a GOTV is happening now.
All right. But what will be interesting is when you compare it to previous years, and when you can also compare it to how the voter registration overall has went up. Mm-hmm. So there's been a lot of talk about that. And I just want, there's been a lot more excitement and a lot more people registering. And of course, it's also within the 90-day window at this point. So there are volunteers going door to door knocking. We've both done that in our pasts. I worked for a political PAC in my youth and everything else. And that's one of the things I did was, go door to door knocking on people, and getting people registered to vote and stuff like that. And I know we've made phone calls for it as well. So it's one of those situations where, yes, it is definitely part of that, but I'm hoping it's also indicative that the state may be going a little more bluer this time, and that might be a good thing for us, especially when you look at the down ticket.
You saw a lot of this, in 2008.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, because you were involved with the campaign in 2008. Does this feel like a similar vibe as far as Obama?
It definitely has that vibe. It has that energy. But I'd have to dig into different numbers to know if it's actually having that kind of impact. But it definitely has that vibe right now. Speaking to a lot of people who are currently involved. Very reminiscent. Let's turn it blue again. And I went and I submitted my own resume again to the new the talent pool on the Harris website.
Good.
So, I helped do it before, and I have the talents. So let me know if you need me.
Yep. and our stick.
Don't you blaspheme in here. Don't you blaspheme in here.
We already kind of touched. Go ahead.
We did, yeah. We talked about a little bit about Amin Khalifa. I mean, I just talked about that she brought a lawsuit against she who should not be named and the muskrat.
Yeah. Who also shouldn't be named and everything else. Why is he on my wrestling TV? Yeah. Here's the thing: he's a great talent, but he's also an asshole. Like,
I don't know why you persist in X. You put X as sources in here, and I have to click on it. I try not to go there. You think TikTok's malware? You use X. Like this? You think that scraping isn't happening? Like, dude. But yeah, the horrible treatment of that boxer. She's got a condition. She has high testosterone. Anyone who has PCOS, almost anyone who has PCOS has had this problem, let alone other genetic conditions like hers. It does not make her a man. It does not give her an advantage. The statistics show her getting beat all the time by other women, but this other woman got knocked out and said, it's not fair. And everybody jumped on and made all kinds of assumptions, and people were outright saying she's trans, which she's not. She was born a woman, always been a woman, and this rumor puts her in danger, and it was publicized by TERFs and, just, yeah. So this is an ugly, nasty mess that happened during the Olympics. Like, wow. It was so sad. I did the only good part of this is on Facebook. I did see people posting it who just didn't research past the headline or whatever little article they saw. Like, all right, something's got to be done about this. This is awful. And I mean, I have a close friend I was out to dinner with, and she was like, because we were out volunteering, and she's like, I don't know. I mean, what are you going to do? Like, if there's these advantages, I'm like, there's stuff you could do, but not this. But people were posting like, oh no, something's going to be done. And then they were like, if you corrected them, I saw more people be corrected and take it and apologize than I've ever seen on something like this. And that speaks to progress for the whole world for me. I saw people listening instead of just arguing back more than I saw people arguing back as if they were right because they were just patently wrong.
Right. And especially when it came out that it was only one organization that claimed it, and it was a Russian organization anyway, so that can't be trusted to begin with. Especially with the history of what Russia used to do in the Olympics themselves.
Yeah.
They used to do this stuff.
I know, but you reminded me again of the damn Elon freaking Trump thing. He was bragging about his great relationship with Putin and how people just made up all this imaginary stuff about Russia and how great Russia is. What the hell? But then they're anti-commie cult 45 people. Okay, sorry, I'm hurting my own brain thinking about that again. But anyway, yeah, this was a mess.
That causes aneurysm.
I think. Well, no, I'm not going to talk about the Olympics. I mean, I think the solution is to take gender out of it entirely and just everybody compete.
Yeah,
and because people can train to different skills and get better than the other gender at some or all of them. This natural difference, like if some of that pans out, let it. Like just stop segregating it into genders, and just make sure no one's doping.
Right,
and leave it there. So
right.
Anyway,
there's one other thing before we end, and I forgot to post this, but we were supposed to be doing a call to action every week, and I forgot to post it. But call to action this week is talk to people. See if they're registered to vote. Talk to your friends, talk to your family, see if they're registered to vote. If they need a way to get to to get an absentee ballot, or help them out with that, or if they need a way to get to early voting, start talking to people now about registering to vote, because it's coming up. We will, as far as North Carolina is concerned, we will, when it's the week of, we will definitely notify you guys of that. But
another thing is check your voter ID laws. We do have voter ID laws in North Carolina now, and I know other places have enacted them. And just this past week, some other IDs were actually approved. It was supposed to be like only your driver's license, but some student IDs and things have been approved for early voting. And then, of course, or for voting in general, you're going to need ID this year. And your Board of Elections site will be able to tell you exactly what you need, and you can apply through them to get a free ID in most places.
Right. And the thing is, but make sure that you talk to people.
Make sure you're registered. Make sure everyone's registered. Make sure they can vote.
Right. Make sure that if they need a ride or whatever the case may be, that you can get that set up for them so that they can go and vote. Because every vote's going to count, and every state. I would love to see this be a landslide like Reagan in '84. I'd love this to be just a complete massacre and everything else. It may not happen, but it'd be great if it did. So that's one of those situations. But yeah, make sure everybody, talk to your friends, talk to your family, and be like, hey, are you registered? Because I want people to vote. I don't care. I do believe in everybody should vote, even if I disagree with them. Just, make sure they're registered to vote, make sure that, they have a way to get there and everything else. If you have neighbors that may be elderly and need help getting to a place, offer, if you can, to take them for early voting and something like that. And you may also get a nice conversation out of it. So, it works out. So, be neighborly. This is your call to action, to be neighborly and make sure that people are involved in the process. With that being said, thank you for joining us here at Heresy and Hearsay. I'm Rev Barney. You can follow me on all the socials at Seth Roth II. You can also follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and any podcast catcher as well. Just Google us.
And I'm September. You can follow me on my website, Nineof12.com, and connect to all of my content. Also, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Heresy and Hearsay, where $2 a month can keep us going. Thanks for listening today, and bless your hearts.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Okay, I'm gonna stop.